my philosophy has always been, I want to be the biggest deal source anybody's ever met. All right, my friend, first and foremost, super excited to be working together. I just want to also let you know that my only intention of your time here is to make sure you get the unbelievable value. I want you to see like a 10, 20, 30x investment or return on investment in this program. And I'm committed to exactly that. What I want to allow this session to be, I want to be diving into some bottlenecks, because what I've found is that if we can start clearing up some of the bottlenecks in the business, we'll start to be able to see some pretty fast growth right away. So if you want to, and I'll let you take it away and kind of give me an idea of like, we can go one bottleneck at a time. If you feel like you know one right off the top of your head, we could start there.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try and give you the 60-second version. So I've been in real estate for, sales for a while, about 10 years full-time in sales, mostly residential. The past 2 years, I've been with KW Commercial. Obviously, I'm like going both right now, keep getting sucked back into the residential. I'm trying to stop doing that. Like I did this year, I want it to be over with. So
I get it.
I've had a decent year. I've had a couple guys that are letting go a lot of stuff. So had my best sales year ever so far, which is cool. Like I'm somewhere around
Congrats.
like 300, low threes, but I still picture myself starting from zero because like I haven't been doing my lead gen, which I know is that I'm aware like that's the biggest bottleneck. When I started a long time ago, when I was still in school, I don't have a lot of fear with hitting the phones and all that. So I know I just have to get back to that. That's one big thing. It's just some of the hesitancy. I've had a lot of hesitancy. I'm great with numbers and analysis and all that. Just like literally like these are just different. There's so many commas and zeros and stuff going on, and there's the sophisticated people we're talking to. So I think just some of the actual like skill stuff and some of your scripts have helped with that. But I know I'm jumping a couple different directions here, but that's one thing I think that has been in my way, because I've had I just left another coaching program, which we talk about. I've been in coaching for maybe like a third of my career total. Maybe it's helped at certain times for sure, but I've just had this weird thing the past 2 years, like the transition from residential to commercial, because I really don't want to be doing residential anymore. Once you do it for so long, you have like an identity attached to it, and just letting go of that and going after bigger stuff and talking to different people is just a mind trip sometimes. So
one aspect of the bottleneck is the lead gen side, which obviously we've talked about a little bit beforehand, but we can dive a little bit deeper into that today to make sure you get exactly some next steps. I also heard you say that the underwriting and the back end process of kind of like some technical things we can work on a little bit, and then the last part was also just more like the transitional phases of this, going from the resi world to the commercial world. Did I miss anything?
That's pretty much it. The only thing I'll say is like I have a lot of imposter syndrome around like, can I actually do this or not? Like the reason I got into real estate was to invest, right? So I bought and rehab more than like 50 places, all 1 to 4 units. Half of that was in a big project. The other stuff was one by one, lots of brain pain. Doing that scattered site stuff is a big headache.
Yeah.
In the past year or two, we sold all those. We only have a couple left. I bought 2 storage facilities. They're on the smaller end. We're working our way through those right now. So like we're doing it, except as far as like the sales end goes, that's where like the imposter syndrome and hesitancy is. So that's the last thing I'll say.
We'll talk about a little bit about mindset. I think that's actually super important. I honestly might even want to talk about that first, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you feel like the imposter syndrome stems from? Because I feel like a lot of people actually experience this. I've experienced this in my life as well. So like, I'm curious, like where do you think that kind of stems from?
I guess the story I'm telling myself, it's like, what? So I'm used to finding like, maybe this is a good place to start. Like with the residential deals, right? Everything I bought, I have a very easy time at this point recognizing what's a real good deal. And like, we need the types of returns. I have a partner, she's put in money, and like, so we need like a really decent return, which with small stuff, it's easy to get a 10, 20, 30 something more return, because you're dealing with small numbers. Like you buy something for 30 grand and you might make 30 grand in less than a year, right? So that's like, I literally can't wrap my mind around like number one, it's like, can I actually do this? I don't have a lot of actual reps. Will somebody actually trust me to, represent them on a $10 million building? That's number one. Also, it's like, what returns is someone actually going to buy this? Like, I know that larger buildings may trade for 6, 7, 8, 9 cap, whatever, but it's like, who's actually going to do that? Is that kind of person going to trust me? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If that
fully understood. So let me talk you through a few things, and just like first things that come to my mind, transitioning into a space, like call it commercial, but like you can just say anything, like doing something new. I don't care if you're just picking up an instrument, right? Like whatever it is, you're not gonna be great at it, right? Like, there's plenty of things that I'm not great at. And I want you to know that like, it is totally normal for you to feel like a little bit hesitant in some aspect bottlenecks to this side of the business. That's normal. And by the way, like I still sometimes feel that way when I'm talking like, again, like I'm talking with a few deals. We're talking about like a $500 million deal. I've never done a $500 million deal before. And it's like, when I'm talking about a deal size like this, I'm like, it's sometimes a little bit intimidating. And then I realize that like, it's just a bigger property, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's just, if you break it down in like in your head, like I try to make it a little bit easier for myself. Like, oh, it's just like a larger multifamily. I've done, you know, several hundred units. I can do 3,000 units, right? Like, you know, and I can play that game in my head. I'm like, okay, like this is actually just a magnet, like a much more magnified version of what I've already done before. So like if you're doing like hypothetically from smaller 4-family houses, and now you're all of a sudden dealing with a 400 unit apartment complex, and you go from doing a $1 million deal to a $40 million deal. It's like, I've actually kind of done this process before. It looks a little different now, obviously, but it's like, it's not like this is entirely different, right? Like you can relate back to that. So just know inherently, like there's always going to be that first deal. It feels a little weird, like warm and fuzzy, like give you the butterflies. And that'll happen for the rest of your career, by the way. You have the capability of doing a $1 billion deal, right? Like you have that ability. It sounds daunting as hell. Like, you know, I've never done one of those. And I know maybe, you know, eventually in my lifetime, I probably will. And it will be, you know, there's going to be a first one, and then there will be several others, right? Realize that like the one thing I can always count on, and I'm sure that you feel the same, no matter what it is, I'm going to do my best. As much as if it works out or not, it's not about that. It's just, I'm going to do whatever I possibly can. And even if it means that maybe you split deals on like the super large deals with somebody who you feel more confident with, cool.
Yeah, and I think having like as simple as it is, like the part of the reason I obviously signed up for this is like just having someone to bounce stuff off that who's like invested, like me, like I'm paying you, and like you know what I'm saying, like having someone who's experienced, has done more of that stuff. I can just like shoot a text, be like, hey, like, am I on track with this? Like, this guy wants this. I think the dollar per for this. Okay, cool. Like, I would offer him this and ask for this much. Like, being able to just, I'm a pretty quick study. Like, I don't want to like burn up your time too much, but like, give me a month or two of just doing that and getting the reps, and I can get to the finish line pretty quick.
And the other side of the coin, which you brought up, which is like, are people really going to invest in like X% cap rates? If you look at any sub market, your city, your county, your state, there is properties being traded 24/7, 365 forever. Even if our interest rates are hitting 15%, like there are property sales that are going to occur. It is just understanding that, like, listen, does that mean the deal has to be a little bit better? Of course. When interest rates are 8%, you no longer can make sense of an 8 cap. That deal might have to be a little bit better. Maybe it's a day one 8 cap, but it's got to be able to be pushed to a 14 or something like that. You know, like it has to be there, that a value add has to be there. So the short answer is 100% of the time, every time there will be property sales. It's just a matter of, will you be a part of them? And you need to be structuring better deals. Like, listen, no one's buying a 4 cap right now. However, in Manhattan and in Miami, you'd be surprised. There's 4.5 caps, 5 cap sales. Like, it's just kind of insane to think about, but those are occurring. So it might not be in your backyard, but those are occurring. That's why, like, my philosophy has always been, I want to be the biggest deal source anybody's ever met. I want to be able to source and structure deals better than anybody. So like when people want a deal, they come to me. And that's what I try to show in my program, right? Like that's what I want to educate people on. It's like, if you can find great deals, you will never, ever go hungry in this industry. You'll always have a paycheck.
And recognizing, like, I think that belief kind of, it ties into like, even though like I've talked to someone and I might be on track with the numbers, like I still don't believe maybe what I found is actually a good opportunity. And I just hesitate. Like I have a couple people in the fire right now. And like, I hesitate to even call this guy back and make him an offer, even though I think he'll be reasonable and we might, you know, get a conversation going and put something together, because I'm like, is this really?
So I'll give, so one piece of advice on this, right, is that finding one great investor who's just fairly seasoned that will help you underwrite deals at the beginning of your career and kind of give you a real gauge of like where things need to be at because they've bought them before. Obviously make sure that you're like, if they're a retail guy, you're giving them retail stuff. And like, if they're not an industrial guy, they're going to tell you like, oh, this is a shitty deal, even though it's a freaking 11 a cap and plus, you know, it's got all this extra stuff. So be cognizant of that piece of it. But if you brought a single family house to you right now, you would know within a shadow of a doubt, this is a good deal, this is a bad deal very, very quickly. There's plenty of people in your marketplace who understand the same economics in the commercial world and can give you that guidance. I have 3 guys that I play every deal off of. Every deal that I get, I will bring it to them and say, give me your feedback. Hey, just got this lead. This is where I've gotten them down to this number. Give me some feedback. Good, bad, like, am I on track? Am I off track? If this is a horrible deal, you know, like, oh, just like they even know my game because I've made them millions and millions of dollars. They're like, listen, go ahead and list it, Henry. Like, you're not going to make, like, this is not a deal or anywhere near it. Just list it, no problem. Or they'll be like, hey, at this price, you should list it. But if you can get them down from 7 million to, you know, 5.5 million, it's actually something we would be looking to look at. So I have like 9 to 10, 12 guys. And like some of them are a lot more busy than others. It's really like 3 super main guys who represent 80% of my income. We're like, they're buying 20, 30, 40, 50 properties each every year. I can bring those properties to them, get some immediate feedback. And like, I'm bringing deals on silver platters to these guys where the feedback's almost immediate.
You might have mentioned that earlier this week, but I think I'm also just gonna remember that, because when I prospect, I feel like I'm kind of overwhelming myself mentally thinking about having to do too much. But like literally, I like know guys like that. I hope I just need to choose 5 of them or however many it is, like maybe an industrial guy, retail guy, like you're saying, and then just start the process. That way, I'm not worried about finding dozens and dozens of buyers. I can just focus on finding the opportunities. So I
Listen,
think it's just putting.
one great buyer is worth a fortune. And like I have some guys again who are buying like 20, 30, 40, 50 properties in this economy, right? Like their business is buying deals and flipping deals. And obviously, like, listen, they're buying great stuff. I mean, great priced stuff in structuring very, creative deals. That's what's getting deals done right now. So just keep that in mind that like if you have one really good buyer who's bought like 7 properties this last 12 months, I'd spend a lot of time with that guy. Pound the phones for him.
Yeah, and then that's mainly it. And just like again, just a little like the scenario, just running scenarios. And even
Sure.
as the down to like for example, I know one of your scripts, it's like you kind of taking the stance that, hey, I'm an investor looking for this for myself potentially. This is just an example of like how, transitioning that for like, say you start with that script, right? But
Yep.
then you realize, okay, the prices they're at, I don't think my guy's gonna be interested. Like I'm gonna let me see if I can see if they'd be open to listing it. Like even just that
Sure.
transition.
So let's
I've
play it
done
out.
that.
Well, let's role play it right now, right? So like you'll be the seller, I'm the agent. I'm just going to start from opening line. It'll be like, hey, Rodney, my name is Henry. I run a local investment company locally. We're looking to move some money for tax purposes. So I was just curious if you'd be totally against selling the property at 123 Main Street.
You know what? I wasn't thinking about it, but if I got $7.5 million, I'd probably consider it.
7.5 million. Got it. Okay, cool. So you're looking for 7.5 million. So based on this market, it's around $200 a square foot. And I'm going to side note here beyond this. Like, let's just say like that's market value. Probably nowhere
Yeah.
near where I need to be, right? Like I would probably wanted it like $4.5 million, right? I'm going to eat in my head immediately. I've already told you I'm an investor. I'm going to flip it now into the conversation. So you're looking for around 7.5 million. Okay, great. So just curious, if the right price came along at 7.5 million, you'd be prepared to possibly accept that, correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Full disclosure, I do hold a commercial real estate license. And, just curious, would you be totally against having me market your property?
I kind of want to keep things on the down low if we do this. So,
Listen, so do I. Unlike most commercial real estate brokers, I actually am not interested in getting a listing. But what we do is we sign an agreement that allows me to market your property. I have a database of, quite a few dozen very, very seasoned investors. Would you be totally against having me putting some information in front of them?
I guess it depends on what it involves. I have to, look at, is it exclusive? Is it not? What's
Yeah.
the
So, So number one, it is an exclusive. Number two, the entire purpose is really just to protect me and protect yourself. Really, like I'm going to be putting just some light information in front of these investors who are very seasoned and active. But again, you want to get 7.5 million. I want to try to get you 7.5 million plus. In order to do that, I'll need to at least have some type of agreement signed to make sure that no one's going to be going around me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I could see that. I guess I
Cool.
could see that.
Great. So in order for me to send you over an agreement, which obviously I want you to be able to review, would you prefer a text or an email?
Probably an email, and then I can look it over and see. And how much commission do you charge?
Yeah. So what I do is that it depends on the price points and what I'm able to achieve, but 9 times out of 10, we actually have the buyer pay the commission. So just know that we're looking to try to get you the best price possible. And if we have to have the buyer pay 100% of it, we'll have the buyer pay 100% of it. So again, you wanted me to do that via email, correct?
Yeah, email works.
And again, just to kind of step out of the conversation real quick.
Sure.
So just know that the transition's a lot simpler than you realize. The transition is also they don't care. I'm as transparent as I need to be is my philosophy these days. Like everyone always asks oh, what do you tell people right away? Like, listen, I'm a local real estate investor. It doesn't mean I don't have a license. Being an investor you can be an investor. It doesn't matter. Like you don't need a license. Right. You can have a license. It's irrelevant. And by the way, when I tell people I hold a license, they're like, they don't care. Obviously you'd probably have a license. How else am I compensated?
Yeah.
It's just the smooth intentionality and making sure that you need to be hot on your toes, right? We had a call today. It's just even flipping it to a buyer conversation. No, I have no interest in selling your property. Like, Rodney, I don't blame you, especially in this type of economy. But I'm just curious, Rodney, do you happen to look to acquire more properties like you have at 123 Main Street if an unbelievable deal came across my plate?
Yeah, who's going to say no to that? I mean,
So, but it's being fast in that. It's being not only quick to doing it, but also having a very smooth transition and confident in that transition. So in having the charisma, and playing.
Yeah, believe it or not, I have that. I just get caught up in I've been playing one game for so long. You kind of remind me of myself a little bit, honestly. Like even I don't know if that's a weird thing to say, but like I've done that so much, but only in this game, and I just
I get
all
it.
these weird beliefs are like
I get it.
I just
And just know it's the same game, dude. You know, like I went from selling 100 residential homes a year to zero, like not necessarily zero, but I don't deal with any anymore. Like, you know, we still do 20, 30,
right.
40 transactions a year on my Resi team, but like just from referrals and stuff like that. But I don't do that. I don't deal with it anymore 100%, you know? So it's like 100% of my time is really spent on the commercial side. And it's like, yeah, listen, is it different? Yes. Is it drastically different? Not really. Like, it's like buying a four family. Like, oh, I got to know the numbers. I got to know some comps. I'm going to do some underwriting. See where it makes sense. They want 700. I'm going to offer them 450. Same game, but obviously it just looks a little different, right? It's just called a different thing.
Yeah,
You know?
I just gotta that's all I gotta accept and just start doing it, I guess. I think that's really the biggest thing for me. Just literally just need to start.
A long time ago, I was watching, I was actually with Grant, into a lot of his events, but I was sitting with him and he's like, listen, like just, dude, just underwrite 1,000 properties. Experience is built up in doing, right? Like no one's expecting you to have unbelievable experience day one. Dude, it's like being a boxer, being in 1,000 fights versus zero, you're going to beat me the hell up. Give yourself a little bit of grace and also kind of step into the fact of like, hey, like the only way to get better is by just doing 100 of these.
Do you find that the stuff like that you're putting together, you know, this is a pretty broad question, but I know these days you have to think creatively, and I know you're always I've listened to some of your videos, you're asking questions, seeing if they'll hold paper, seeing, you know, trying to figure out the terms. All right, if you hold it at this rate, which is better than the market, and I'll put this much down, all that. Are you finding more stuff getting done as a whole, being a little more creative like that, or really just more finding the people that are getting at the right price?
One of two things is happening right now. It's either you're getting it at the right price or you're being creative. That's it. Like, so it's, you're either getting a great price on the property or you have to think creatively. There's not a crazy amount of very, very good deals out there. There's just not. There's several of them out there. There's just not an overabundance of them, right? So, you know, that being said, you know, like a very small percentage of deals that we're closing right now, I'd say like, you know, where it used to be like obviously like 95% of straightforward deals at good prices during the 2020, 2021, you know, even 2022 a little bit, it started trending down where now it's like less than half of the deals right now are super straightforward. And the other half or more, I mean, 60% of them are creative.
Yeah. And do you end up because I have a friend of mine who focuses really mainly on the assignment and like just wholesaling, doesn't have a license and all that. Playing the same game, you know, but and he just transitioned to commercial as well, but he's doing well. But do you find that you're having a bigger portion? Because when you get creative like that, are you locking it up under contract yourself and then just assigning that to the buyer and then they're paying at closing, or do you still end up being paid on the seller's end most of the time?
A large percentage of the time I'm being paid as a broker, just because I think about it. Like it's like, okay, take an example. Like a guy wants $5 million. I'm brokering it out at 5.3. My commission included. If it's clean and I get paid 100% of my commission anyways through EXP, like there's no reason for me to, why am I trying to lock it up and then pay 2 closing costs on, you know, and deal with the assignment fee and trying to be shady in some way. Don't get me wrong. Like again, like I've had deals where like there's $1 million in spread. You better believe that I'm double closing on that, on like $1 million deal that I'm really selling for 2. I'm not going to run that through EXP. That doesn't make any sense, right? I'm going to be
I mean, just even with just a straight closing, like my friend who I was referencing, he's not doing double closings or anything. The buyer's like happily paying him on the HUD. He's just structuring it creatively and whatever, and then literally signing. Gets
my philosophy is like, listen, if it's the same amount of percentage wise as a commission, just run it through the brokerage. It's way cleaner, way more, it's just easy, right? And no one even questions me being paid a commission. You know, like, are they beating you up on your commission? I'm like, they want, you know, they want X price. I'm getting them X price. They don't care.
That's the biggest, and that's another big hurdle, honestly, in my head, because like the biggest commission I've made so far is like 60 grand this year. And even just thinking that you could possibly make more than that, it's just you know,
you can make a lot more. They don't care, right? Like think about it. What's in the seller's head? You've been a seller before. I want X number. That's what's in your head. That's why I'm trying to say 6 points. A seller's like, I understand that innately. If you're trying to make 15 points, you're double closing, right? Like you just have to double close the deal, right? You're going to be a principal in this situation and you're not brokering the deal anymore. And then I'm a principal investor. So it, you know, like that's why like I'm just very straightforward one way or the other. If I'm going to make around somewhere in the 3 to 6% range of the deal, I'm just going to broker the deal. And then like, again, on the small stuff where you're like, a single family house, or you're locking up for 30, selling for 50, you're not brokering that deal. It just doesn't make any sense. But like on the commercial side, just that's why like 90% of the time I'm brokering deals. And like, obviously like there's also a huge amount of deals that I'm also just investing in, like just closing as an investor and making a syndication fee and other things. training. So
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other things I can think of, but it's most of them probably just as I come up through stuff, just scenarios. Really, I
listen,
think
like
just
focus on sourcing deals. Focus on getting those leads. Let's underwrite some deals together. Right, bring them to the training. Let's underwrite some deals. Let's make some offers. Right, like I'm a huge fan of just I make 3 to 5 offers a day every day. A bunch of stuff that I get. I know I was prospecting today. This guy has a 140,000 square foot warehouse. On the first phone call, I made him an offer of 15 million. And he's like, I'd probably be somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, cool. I'm going to go back, and on Monday, I'm going to call him back, and I'm going to send him an offer for 13.5 million with my name on it. Like, hey, we spoke to our lender or whatever. It's like, oh, you said 15. Listen, based on today's rates, this is what we can afford. Well, I won't take 13.5. I'll take 15. Okay, cool. Now I know he's at 15, right? And now it doesn't even really, okay, he's at 15. Now I'll underwrite the deal and spend time actually going through it and say, listen, I think it's actually it might be worth 20, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I'm trying to lowball him a little bit. I play the world of investor first.
Yeah, because you'll never know, I guess, until you ask. As simple as that is.
My client most of the time is the buyer. That's the way I look at it. Like I'm trying to find great deals for my investment partners. That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm not listing properties.
And like for example, for this guy for a 13.5, like, and then you'll run that by one of your 3 buyers or whatnot and say, hey, what do you think? Would you be in at this number? And
I'll pitch them the deal at 18. Got a guy for 140,000 square foot warehouse who wants 18 million. They're like 18. I don't think it makes any sense at 18, but it would make sense at 16. 16.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Because I'm pre-negotiating. I pre-negotiate everything. So that way, when I bring it to my investors by the end of the time, like when I'm like, hey, okay, you know that deal we talked about? I got the deal now at 15.7. It's like 15.7, Henry. That's great. Like I wanted, he wanted 16, but it's a great deal because I have it at 14.8. My commission's on top, and I make, I'll make 6% on 15.8.
And then when you send the seller you have obviously the buyer sign the offer first, and then we send it to the seller. It's
like, hey, we talk about you netting 14.8. Here's my commission. Right. My buyer's paying the commission on top. It states that the seller's paying the commission, but that's just for legal technical purposes. You're walking away with 14.8. In the residential world, you can't do that. Right? Like you're not allowed to do that.
No.
But like in the commercial world, that's how it's done.
Yeah, I think that's literally what it is. Like I enjoy, I think, operating that way. I just haven't done it. And very, very few times. Like you said, you're really not supposed to when you're a licensed agent. It's like in
the residential world, we list it for the most money possible to get them the most money possible. Right? In the commercial world, I'm an investor. Everything's negotiable.
I know there's 2 schools of thought on this. Diversifying asset class versus diversifying the area. Like I can pull a list.
I just recorded a video about this.
Yeah, was it with Chad Griffiths?
No, I had an interview with him and we debated it a little bit, but I actually just recorded a specific video of how to choose the best asset class, which again I think you'll enjoy.
I'll definitely check that out because I'm literally like I can pull whoever I want. I'm just like I know Philly and the area here very well, so I'm just not sure if it's better to just focusing on industrial, which is really what I like the best. But
sure,
at the same time,
yeah, I think the video will really help you break things down. But just like a sneak peek, it's really just basically breaking down 2 things. Number 1 is industry trends, knowing your market really well, which is like knowing the industry trends. Like, okay, well, number 1, no one says you have to do all the asset classes. Wait, when someone says diversify asset class wise, like it could be 2, maybe 3, right? Like, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of like we do multi-industrial and retail. Those are our main 3. Those are our focuses. Office, listen, I'm not saying I don't do office. Like I understand office, but like I'm not prospecting for an office building. Who the hell's buying that right now, right? So, but I'm following industry trends constantly. Of like, oh, okay, like, well, this one's like, these 2 are super hot. I'm going to ride this cash wave, follow the money. At the same time, in this video, I talk about how like, if you're like, like the back of your hand industrial, geographic expand, dude, like you're in PA, man. You could do the whole entire state industrial wise, and it's the same game, the whole state. So, and that's an easy thing to expand on.
And this is kind of getting a little bit more in the weeds but do you have like a specific, because I'm, lucky enough to have access to CoStar and all that, but do you have a specific like volume that's trading annually that make you interested enough to,
because percentage basis though. It's a percentage basis. Market is a pie, right? And it's divided into several different asset classes and geographic locations. Each geographic location has its own pie of asset classes that are being traded, right? It's important to note that like, okay, think just off the top of your head, like, okay, well, if hypothetically your clientele, okay, a few different modes of thought. If your clientele that you're working with right now, your buyers in your marketplace are big industrial guys, you should be a friggin' industrial dude for a little while. But if your local guys are all retail, what the fuck are you prospecting industrial for? It just doesn't make any sense. If that checks the box, cool. Next step, which is like, okay, is industrial really hot in your market? Like again, in the video, I was even talking about how like the county I grew up in New Jersey, industrial is the lowest asset class on that list because there's just not a lot of industrial in that county. It's a very heavy, high income area. So there's not a lot of industrial there. Very retail heavy and multifamily heavy. If you're want to prospect that one county, you shouldn't choose industrial. It would just be really stupid. You need to understand your local market economics before you just say like, oh, well, I should do this asset class.
And that's what I've been like looking into. I guess I just need to try to figure out what, like trying to know what number volume is trading to make it worth going after. But I guess I'll just look at.
I think that it's important to just note the following, and I think this will kind of take this all together for you. It's like if you're going to get a percentage of the market, right? Like if the entire market is, let's say, because I was looking at my county, actually, sorry, my entire state, there was 3,400 transactions in the last 90 days. Okay.
Right.
Total commercial wise, total 3,400 transactions, all different asset classes. I'm like, okay, well, if 3,400 properties traded in the last 90 days, you know, and then I'll break it down into different asset classes, like, oh, okay, well, 1,500 retail, 1,700 office, or 2,000, whatever it is. Like, okay, well, each one of those, it's like a quarter. But like when I actually broke down the numbers, I think like retail was 35% of it. I was like, okay, well, if retail is 35% and I had to choose one type of asset class, I probably would choose retail if I'm brand new. The only way to really make sense of what asset class to target is to say like, okay, I'm going to follow the cash because if all cash is being invested here and the trending economics look like, okay, well, industrial in my local market, in my network, in the trends, in economic trends is all pointing to industrial, I'm going to start working industrial. It's more of a filter of saying like, what should you not be prospecting for versus what you should.
I think I follow what you're saying, and I think it makes it easy because that's just one of the things I'm figuring. Like, because there's so many people who are on both sides of the fence of specializing versus generalizing, and like we've been talking about. So I think just following the money, I'm all for that. I'm not emotional about one or the other. It's just it's all numbers.
It's all numbers, and that's why, like, listen, I'm an investment broker. That's what I say to people. What's my niche? I'm an investment broker. I'm an investment broker, and it's like I follow the money in the sense of like, imagine being an office broker right now. Like you've just been doing office for the last 10, 20, 30 years. That's what your brokerage is all about. What are you doing right now? How can you possibly stick to one asset class? I'm not saying all. I'm saying a few. Have an understanding of how to underwrite deals regardless of what comes across your plate. Because even if you're prospecting and you pull a list and it's a commercial deal, industrial property, right? Like you're focusing on industrial, there's going to be times where you get a mixed use deal. I was just talking to a guy who owns a 40, 50,000 square foot mixed deal where like there's a 30,000 square foot warehouse and a 15 or 20,000 square foot retail center on the front. Okay, do you just not do that? Like, right? Like it's like, oh, well, it's got some retail to it. Do I not just do this? Like, because I'm an industrial guy? No, you find a way to freaking do the deal.
It's literally all, what's the gross income? What are your expenses? Do I think they're in line? Okay. And then you
check the leases, check this, check that. That's it. Like, like to oversimplify, but you get my point.
I do. And I think it's just got to do it. It's
amen, man.
That's what it is.
And listen, like I said, reach out if you ever have any deals. Reach out, throw it to the email, the info@henryeisenstein.com in email, just with a subject line deal. I get a lot of them. Just email me. I'll underwrite it. I'll give you some feedback. I always go back and forth all the time. Like, hey, like I can't give you an answer unless I have X, Y, and Z details. I'll give you some feedback of like what direction to go. If I know the markets, which I have a pretty good grasp of Philly, obviously, like eastern side of Philly, don't have that much of an understanding of. We can start working through a couple deals together.
Definitely, and trust me, I won't I'm not one to send stuff. I try and get all the details first before I send anything to. And a lot of the stuff I've called, I got to revisit a lot of people from the past year. But like when I was doing a lot of texting last year, a lot of it's South Jersey, all the way up to honestly, all the way up to close to New York. So a lot of it's probably in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, anything you come across in Jersey, I mean, like that's my bread and butter, man. Just keep in mind, like more than anything, the better the deal, the easier it is to sell it. You know that from being an investor, but like that's our mindset. It's just like if we want to sell more deals, we need to structure more deals. We need to find prospect harder so that we have more opportunities to structure more good deals. And the more we can structure good deals, it's so freaking simple to sell a deal at 60 cents on the dollar. And everyone's like, how the heck do you do that? I make offers on everything.
Well, I'll start by sending you, the one or two that I'm working on, the couple industrial things that I've had conversations with this week, and then
self-storage. By the way, I have a huge self-storage guy. If you come across anything like that, and I mean everything, anything you have, come bring it to me. Let me see if I, what I can do for you.
These two are self-storage, and it's one of the rare ones where you call the guy and he's already got PDFs and the breakdowns and layouts, and like he had an LOI last year that like, hey, you know what I mean? It makes it easy for you. I'll send that to you, and let's just take it from there. See if we can.
Let's do it, man.
So tired of making this small.
Well, listen, let's take you from 300 to 3 million. Okay,
It's hard for me to even say. Yes, I want to do that, but it's just the only thing that I can do to stay sane is just to focus on every day. Like I'm getting back to just load up the dialer, hit the go button, and don't leave for
Absolutely.
two,
Listen, it's
at
all about
least
your
2 hours.
it's all about the daily activities. That's why I just try to win the day, because if you win the day, you win the week, to win the month, win the quarter, win the year. And it's just like
Yeah.
interesting thing about making more money, man, is that it's just condensing time frames. She's like, okay, well, it's like hypothetically, if X amount of calls led to you making 300, how do you make X amount of calls in a month? That's as simplistic as you can possibly make it, to understand that like it's actually a lot simpler than people make it out to be, to 10x your income fairly quickly, especially with price points, right? Like if you're already like the last deal that you closed on the commercial side was how much?
It was $1 million.
I know this sounds stupidly obvious, but like people don't pay attention to this. It's like, okay, well, you should only be prospecting deals that are at least $2 to $3 million in price point. Like if you can choose what, because like you sell what you prospect for. So like, why would you prospect for deals that are 600 grand? It just doesn't make any sense, right? So like if you're going to pick up the phone and can be prospecting for something, prospect for $3 million minimum deals. Like our team does 2 to 20 million. That's like our sweet spot. We don't prospect for less than $2 million deals. Our lowest checks that we close are $100,000, right? 120,000, right? 6% on 2 mil. Okay, well, that's obvious because we prospect at such a price point. If we're prospecting for $400,000 deals, our average commission check would be 20 some odd grand.
That to most people feels more achievable.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
that's
Listen, you just
so
did a deal where you made 60 G's, right? Like I'm telling you that like, you can, I want you to be prospecting for deals where you can make 600.
it's crazy because like that one transaction it was a church, and it was like one of the easiest ones I've done, and like they thanked me for it, and like everyone was so happy. And meanwhile, the 45 other places I've sold this year, literally a lot of these are I'm still, it's one group of investors letting go all this stuff. Some of the stuff's $100,000. Like I want to shoot myself because I'd be one of those. The amount of friction,
I get
and
it. I
you know
get it.
how it is. So it's really just a mind trip. And even though you might know something logically up here, like accepting it, it's
And
yeah.
listen, guess what? All it takes is one to change your mind forever. I closed one deal and I made 180 some odd thousand. Like I was like, I could do this every week. Like my mindset's like, if you've done it once, you could do it every week, right? Like it's just the numbers
Yeah.
thing. Even if you're like you're focused, dude, 60K a week. I mean, like, dude, 60K a week is 240,000 a month. I mean, it's 3 million a year. But which I'm saying is like, dude, you're talking about $1 million, like $1 million deal at 6 points, right? Once a week. I mean, we're not talking rocket science, right? Like we're talking about $1 million deal every week, right? Which if you do that every week, that's a $3 million year.
Which is kind of crazy. So changed a lot of things. So my goal is just to get one, for now. In this, however long it takes, week, a month, a couple days, I don't know what it's going to take, but just to get one and then prove the
Starts with
concept to
prospecting.
myself.
Let's do it. Well, listen, man, I'm excited to be working together. If you need any support, you know how to reach me. I'll see you Wednesday.
Cool. Yeah. Talk to you Wednesday.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.